when I invested, it was primarily for, what I thought was the football games, but I realized like the college campuses are much like kind of large convention centers with everything that it brings into town.
Hi, I'm Vikki Grodner, and I'm the college real estate coach. I'm so excited today to speak to my friend and client, Ryan Winzenburg. Ryan is a genius when it comes to all things on investing in college towns. He has bought properties with us for short-term rental and long-term rental and mid-term rental and just about every variation you can think of. So I couldn't think of a better person to have talk with us on the College Real Estate Coach than Ryan Winzenburg. So Ryan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Vikki.
So first of all, why don't you tell us, and with as much detail as you would like, about your journey into college towns, because I know you're a very data-driven guy, and so you went into this with a lot of knowledge.
Yeah, and it's, and I think it's all investing. It starts with a little bit of like insight from just wandering around the world as well, and just then being data informed, I guess, from what you observe in the real world. So I live in Denver, Colorado, and I started investing here. It started with long-term rentals, and I moved over to the short-term rental world. Then, due to the regulations in Colorado and just it's expensive as all get out here, I kind of, cast my gaze like nationally, and kind of circling on that a little bit as well. Like I realized my properties here, like I didn't see them for 6 months to a year. So I think that's what stops a lot of people from getting into the investing, outside of their hometown, is that like, well, I need eyeballs on it and I need to go over there. And at least what I've learned for myself, it's, once you have a good cleaning crew and maintenance folks and landscapers, you have other eyeballs in your property all the time, and people will let you know when things go wrong. So you really don't, like once you get over the initial anxiety, like buying an investment property, like you just really rely on your kind of larger team to keep eyeballs on your property. So that kind of freed up my brain to kind of look outside the Denver market.
But why college towns? Yeah.
Yeah, and how I got into college town. So a friend of mine was graduating from a university in Minneapolis, actually, or outside of Minneapolis. And like I do everywhere, I just kind of pulled up Zillow, and I was just like, I'm curious, like what homes are available in this area. And I realized, like, they're really fairly well maintained, attractive homes. That I went over to AirDNA, the tool I use to kind of understand profitability, and realize like, holy smokes, like there's like huge returns on your investment. Then I just kind of started thinking a number of things, like what makes college towns like better than the others, and it really is like around the college football team seemed to be the main part of it. So I just did a top 10 list of schools, with the biggest legacy football programs, and
Right.
running an analysis with that. And at that point in time, number one and number two was South Bend, Indiana, where Notre Dame is. It's and part of that as well, it's like it's not necessarily how the team is doing like this year, that it has like a 50-year legacy of doing really well.
Yeah, because when you first invested in South Bend, I mean, Notre Dame wasn't necessarily the team that they are
No,
today.
no, but
So,
you've got a globe of very devoted Catholics
yes,
to that team. So,
100%.
no matter how the team is doing, like you've got a very deep fan base that are just going to come in for every game because that's their alma mater. And
Right.
then Alabama is the same story, but Alabama has been doing, quite well for quite a while, and probably will continue as well. And it's also, what I've learned about investing in Tuscaloosa as well, it's just like how deep the roll tide goes, I guess.
Right.
Like like people are passionate about Alabama football, and people will come in like rain or shine, and it gets to the numbers as well. You can stop me and back me up on all this because this can be like a data dump
Right.
real quick. But
Sure.
s- so why some college towns are better than others, this goes back to the history of colleges, is that they opened universities far away from the metropolitan areas so people could focus on
Yes.
the academics. Like university settings were almost like very like monastic on some level. Like they wanted a place of calm and of study and thoughtfulness. So a lot of universities and colleges are away from kind of the major metro areas,
Right.
which makes them small towns by themselves. And they're often too small for your large chains to come in, your large hotel chains or hospitality chains to start hotels. When I invested in Tuscaloosa, I think there were 14,000 hotel rooms in the city.
No, it wasn't anywhere close to that. It
There
was
was like
less than it
1,000
was
or something.
less it was less than 4,000. It was
That's right. There we go.
3,900 hotel rooms.
That's right. And
And
what we
and even
remember,
today, Ryan, I think it's just a little over 5,000. So yes, some of the big chains have come in and built more, but even still,
yep.
to your very good point, for one of those big football games, 5,000 hotel rooms is not going to cut it.
Yeah, and you'll know this number better than I, but like the stadium holds like 50,000, but 150,
107,000. It's
107.
one of the largest in the country. And when we have a big football game, there might be 50 or 75,000 people out on the quad who never even go into the game.
Right.
So we could
Right.
have close to 200,000 people for a big game. And where are all those people going to stay? So,
Yeah. Yeah. And that was really compelling to me, just those stats in
for
general.
sure.
Like you definitely have more bodies than you have beds
Right.
down in those days. Um, and I think like you and I've worked together for a while and talked to other investors, and the pushback uh, about game days. There's just not that many game days by and large
Right.
over the course of the year. So those are great anchors, great anchor days. If anything, like my property in Tuscaloosa, I can make as much as $1,200 a night on game days, which is, then my mortgage is $1,400 a month. So
Right.
not so bad.
Right. And your property there, your current property is not really that close to the campus. I mean,
But yeah,
yeah, but yeah, you
15
still do
miles or 20
pretty
minutes.
darn well. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah. And it's like, and I think being close out by the lake as well, I think it kind of double dips
yes,
a little bit.
no doubt.
If you come from a city, like a 15-20 minute drive is not the end of the world.
Of course.
Being in rural Alabama, that seems like a lot, but for I think people
For
visiting, it's
sure.
not that big of a deal. But where I was going was that I realized what goes back to that colleges and universities being geographically isolated, they
Right.
end up being kind of these regional hubs for the entire state throughout the rest of the year. So things that surprised me, because when I invested, it was primarily for what I thought was the football games, but I realized like the local middle school gymnastics tournament needs a place to meet, like throughout the county or across several counties. So graduation weekends um, are as lucrative as the games are,
Hmm.
as our parents' weekends. Um, Parents just like to come in and cook their kids a home cooked meal, periodically.
No doubt.
So there's a lot of just kind of like, your typical university reasons why those properties stay busy. But yeah, what I was saying is just kind of that, those college campuses are much like kind of large convention centers with everything that it brings into town.
Yeah,
Um,
I saw this week that the American Legion has some kind of girls' university event in Tuscaloosa. So that's exactly right. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like touching on this briefly, we can circle back on it as well. But using dynamic pricing tools, like I use a tool called PriceLabs,
Right.
um, because like I have no idea that you know you know
But the American Legion girls are going to be in town this week,
yeah,
and that
I'm
it
not,
might
not
be
you
an
know I'm not
opportunity.
big on the
But
American Legion girls pulse anymore. It's
so dynamic pricing. I mean, I know what that is, but can you just explain a little bit more what you mean by that?
Yeah, you bet. So most people, when they're setting up a short-term rental on Airbnb, when you set up pricing, there's a button, checkbox, whatever, like within Airbnb that says like I want dynamic pricing. But that's not real. At the end of the day. So Airbnb is still trying to steal customers away from the hospitality market, so they artificially suppress the prices that you can get for your
Oh,
property.
that's interesting. I didn't realize that, Ryan. That's interesting.
Yeah, so there are a couple tools I used Wheelhouse for a while. There's another tool called PriceLabs. They're both great. But they're constantly monitoring the market for supply and demand. Um, of like so if these if those weekends come up that you don't know about, it can detect a giant spike in demand, and you set up kind of three criteria. It's like, what is your base price? Like my base price is
Right.
$299, but it allows you to like create a maximum cap as well, and that's where I set the $1,200 in my tool. But then I set a minimum because, like, for a house that I'll rent out for almost $300 a night, like I'm not gonna let people stay in it for $49 a night. Like maybe I'll go down
Of course.
$149 or something like that, for a Tuesday or Wednesday stay, just to kind of like help fill up my week. But yeah, and it's constantly monitoring. I have it set up as well that it projects out into the future. It's kind of like a ramp out in the future. So it's dynamic pricing like in the 2 to 3 month window, which at least in the
Right.
Tuscaloosa market is kind of like your regular booking window.
Right.
But I've learned, especially in college towns, that as soon as like graduation becomes available, like people are booking it a year in advance. And those who are clever and know when that calendar drops will like book it immediately and get a huge discount.
You also
Um,
know when the football schedule gets announced too,
yes.
because that's when they come in and try to get a such a
Yep.
deal for the
Yeah.
Alabama Georgia game or whatever. So yes.
Yeah. So like for those who don't have dynamic pricing set, they get quite a deal.
Yeah, right.
But since I have it set up that it kind of like higher future pricing,
Yes.
that is set to like a at $1,200 by default. And if it doesn't book, it doesn't really matter because the supply of homes is fewer and fewer as the date gets closer. And I think like you and I have talked before, like people will pay anything if there's a house available like a week before like a big game day.
So talk to me about in
Tuscaloosa,
Tuscaloosa.
for example, we have a town that's just right across the river, Northport, and you have invested there as well as in Tuscaloosa proper. So, let's talk about.
How that worked out for you and why that sometimes can make sense.
Yeah, it really comes to, like Tuscaloosa is the hotspot. It is the brand name. That is the Mercedes-Benz BMW of towns to invest in. But there is a regulation. So, you know, the regulations in Tuscaloosa proper, if your goal is to full-time rent out your property, Tuscaloosa is very restrictive. Like it's great if you're looking for a second home, and you're okay just renting it out when you're not there, or maybe you just want to
Right.
take advantage of the game days, which can be profitable. But yeah, the city of Tuscaloosa is not into you short-term renting your home full time, for a variety of reasons. So a way of getting around that is just figuring out where the border of that restriction is. In Tuscaloosa, it's very clear. It stops at the other side of the river, where Northport begins.
Which
And
is its own entity, right? Its own city. So
yep,
yes,
yeah, and it's the same county, which I've learned
right.
recently, as Tuscaloosa, and there are some meta kind of Tuscaloosa County regulations, but at least the city regulations you can work around. Um, and the like Main Street, and you probably have an exact figure in your head, but you're really only a couple miles from downtown or the historic Main Street of Northport to the stadium.
Right. Yeah,
Uh,
most people say that it's about 7 to 10 minutes to the campus from, from downtown Northport. And there are
yeah,
shuttles and things, so they have figured out ways to accommodate getting people, at least certainly for game days, from Northport to campus. So,
yeah, yeah, and it's really easy, and when I had my place in the heart of Northport, I'd never had a complaint, and like people were like pleasantly surprised of how convenient it was to get to the campus, and you're so close to kind of like the city center part of Tuscaloosa as well. So if you want to do brunch or any bar or restaurant activities, like you're a really short drive to that as well.
right. Yeah, so obviously applicable in other college towns as well. If that college town is either restrictive or, expensive, because that's the thing. Usually in Northport, typically you can get things that are less expensive as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Both probably, yeah, Airbnb stay wise as well as buying a house as well, and that goes with probably insurance and taxes and all that corresponding stuff as well.
right, right. So, and then I know you've again thought creatively and figured out how to do midterm rentals, which are typically rentals that are not for 6 months or 12 months, but they're also not for a weekend. So they're usually usually over 30 days, I believe, is most commonly considered the definition. So,
Yep, correct. And I think that's a largely an untapped market, especially in college towns as well, or something most people don't think of. So over the years, um, the supply of Airbnbs have gone up quite a bit. So if your property doesn't really stand out, or you're not, can't get on the first page, and you're looking for kind of other ways to maintain being profitable, exploring midterm rentals is a great strategy. So like you said, midterm is anything above 30 days. So that gets you outside of any sort of short-term stay restrictions. So like in the
right,
Tuscaloosa example, like I don't know this for sure, but I'm assuming if you had someone who rented your place out for 30 days, like you don't have to deal with any of the short-term rental regulations. Um,
right,
and who that attracts may be surprising for people as well. The primary audience for short-term stays was the nursing industry. It's kind of where it showed up on a lot of people's radar, especially during COVID when nurses were in high demand and
right,
traveling around the country. So nurses on average will have 3-month contracts starting, but they'll usually like re-up and do 6 months. But they're looking for, a completely furnished house as well. And on average, you can charge double what a normal monthly rent would be. So if you can rent a place out in Northport for $1,500 a month, like you could ask $3,000 a month, which will definitely cover your mortgage and all your expenses, and will help you
right,
cash really well. Um, but I've also learned that there's also traveling physicians. The one place I had in Northport, I had a traveling surgeon who just would book me out a full year in advance, because he had a set schedule and he'd be there for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. And I just
so
negotiated
interesting.
a rate, and that was really successful. So besides nurses, there's also travel physicians. Being close to university, there are visiting professors that need a place as well. And another thing that I've done as well, there's a component of the insurance industry called temporary housing. So if you've had a fire or a flood in your home, your insurance company will rehouse you until the repairs are done. And usually that starts with 2 months, but if you've done any home repairs, things take twice as long and cost twice as
Of
much.
course.
So you pretty much, if we're quoting you 3 months, you'll get somebody to stay there for 6 months, and they pay on average $6,000 to $8,000 a month to rehouse a family.
Incredible.
Yeah, so that is incredibly lucrative if you can get in with the insurance companies.
And I just wanted to throw in, so with the traveling nurses, usually Furnished Finder might be the website they would go to. So,
Yeah. Yep.
because people may not know that one as well. Well, Ryan, thank you for giving us the game plan for investing in college towns and how to make it work for you. I'm Vikki Grodner, and I'm the College Real Estate Coach.